What's up guys, it's Justin here, and today I'm back with a video of the Logitech BRIO, which is one of the first 4K compatible webcams. So this is a $200 webcam, and in the past few years I've had the Logitech C910, the C920, and also the C922, and it is without a doubt that Logitech is one of the best in the game, if not the best, for making webcams. But in 2017, with TVs in 4K pretty much becoming mainstream nowadays, and even monitors becoming more popular, smartphones for example, it is almost expected that we've reached the point where 4K streaming is going to become a thing over the next few years, and whether you're someone who just wants a nice camera for conference calls or to start making YouTube videos, the Logitech BRIO can do quite a bit. It has the ability to do 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second. It also has facial recognition and autofocus, the Bright Light 3 HDR technology that detects certain backgrounds and makes sure that everything looks just right, and something that I also noticed, a very wide field of view of 90 degrees, a 5x optical zoom, and most of these features and customizability things in terms of the camera settings can be controlled directly in the Logitech camera settings app, which I'm going to walk through when I show you guys some of the test footage. But all of these facts are just on paper, and it really does come down to the real world use. When I had the Logitech C922, which I used for all of my conference calls and streams, I found that it worked very well for 1080p, and at the price that it was heavily discounted at multiple occasions, it was a great value and I was able to recommend it to everyone. In terms of hardware for the webcam though, the BRIO is really the best of the best. You have a dual mic setup for great audio, a stream LED light that you'll find on the front, a nice and wide 90-degree lens, an IR sensor for Windows facial recognition, and also IR LED, as well as a USB-C to USB-A cable in order to connect it to your computer, and it is plug and play. What I really noticed though is that even though this webcam is able to do 4K, there are quite a few limitations, and it will come down to a number of factors in order to make the most of your huge $200 investment for a webcam. First off, you must have a computer that is USB 3.0 compatible, so any computer that is Windows 8 or newer or on the Mac. And in order to capture 4K or stream 4K, you must have a compatible streaming software, in which there are a few recommended ones for Windows, but in Mac I wasn't really able to find many options that let me use 4K. I believe YouTube does support 4K streaming, so that's nice to see, and you'll definitely be able to take advantage of that if you're someone who does a lot of YouTube streams. But otherwise, being one of the first 4K webcams on the market, I realize its limitations, and that early buyers are going to have to overcome that in order to get the best quality of what this webcam is able to offer. But with all that being said and done, in terms of the resolution, the compatibility, the dual mic setup, let's go ahead and hop over to the webcam and give you guys a look at what the actual video quality looks like and what the audio coming out of the webcam itself is able to capture, as well as the camera settings app that gives you all of the flexibility when it comes to the camera settings and customizability. So this is just a test of the Logitech BRIO webcam using the built-in microphones on the webcam as well, and these are just auto settings, so I haven't touched anything. I'm going to go into Control Center later and show you guys some of the tweaks that you can make for the webcam, but just looking at the video quality right now, it seems like it is a very wide field of view. It is a 90-degree field of view, and that can be tweaked. You can zoom in a little bit if you don't want everything in frame. But this is definitely the widest webcam I've ever used, and I've used all of Logitech's top-of-the-line webcams. And I also noticed that even with the auto settings, the exposure is set quite nicely. You can see that the screen in my background is still well exposed and visible. The background, the back wall is still visible as well. It isn't blown out or anything, but at the same time, the subject, which is my face, is also well exposed, and the overall color balance is actually pretty accurate, which is something that a lot of cameras on smartphones and even webcams have had troubles with in my office in the past because of my lighting setup. But just judging from the footage right now, I think the top features of this webcam are the fact that it's able to compensate the exposure very nicely in different situations, so if you have a big window behind you, and the fact that it is just so wide. I think these features are more important than the 4K itself. So now I'm going to give you guys an overview of the Logitech camera settings app for the BRIO. I'm still using the built-in microphone on the webcam itself, so you can continue to hear the sound that is able to capture. But here is the main control page. So I did mention it does have 5x digital zoom. So from here you can just zoom into certain areas of the frame, zoom up and down and just move around there. That's if you want to demonstrate something or focus in on a specific person in the frame. So that's definitely a cool and handy feature to have if you just don't want to have everything in frame. The second pane is also very useful, and for the most part, the auto settings were able to do a pretty good job in terms of detecting my environment and setting the camera settings accordingly. But if it doesn't, you're able to also control the brightness manually, the contrast, color intensity, which is pretty much like saturation, the white balance, and also the autofocus that this has. But if you're recording a YouTube video or doing a live stream, being able to tweak settings like this is going to be very handy. You can have the black and white look as well, or you can saturate it more. And white balance is probably the one that's going to be the most useful, because there are certain situations where the webcam simply will not be able to detect properly what type of white balance to use for the best look. The autofocus is a feature of this camera that they had on the previous versions of the webcams, the C922, the C920. And just to test it out, I have to say there isn't really much improvement. It still works, but it is very situational. So in some situations it works better than others. Certain objects are going to work better than others. But if you're just trying to demonstrate something, a lot of the times it is able to do a good enough job. But in the event that it doesn't, you're able to just place your object and manually control the focus to the point where you think it is in focus. But for the most part, you're just going to be leaving it at the auto and using it as is. So looking at the Logitech C922 in comparison to the Logitech BRIO, I picked this up for under $100. I believe it was closer to $60 on Black Friday. And from looking at the video footage, the first thing you're going to notice is that the field of view is not nearly as wide. This is placed at the same spot as the BRIO. And you also notice that on this side, the background is a little bit overexposed, and so is the computer screen. So, of course, like I just mentioned with the Logitech C922, the BRIO is significantly wider. A 90-degree field of view is going to come in handy in many situations, and it does a much better job in terms of exposing the background as well. You'll notice right here, the closet isn't blown out, and the monitor here is still completely visible, and I didn't change any of the settings. This is all just the auto settings. So it just does a better job in detecting the environment. So being someone that came from the Logitech C920, the C922, and even used the C910 years back, I have multiple webcams from Logitech sitting around my office, and I think they all do a really good job just for general streaming and conference calls, which is mainly what I use them for. So at the end of the day, the big question is whether or not it's worth $200, and the short answer to that question is no. Comparing it to the C922, which I picked up for well under $100 on Black Friday, I believe that the quality on that is more than enough for probably 95% of your uses. With 4K streaming and viewing being still quite rare with all of the bandwidth requirements and hardware requirements in order to process it, the chances are you're probably not going to be using this webcam at its full 4K capability most of the time, but instead 1080p, which the Logitech C910, the C920, and the C922 can do very well. The only way I could really see you justifying this webcam is if you're a large business that does a lot of conference calls and wants the best quality webcam with a wide field of view to fit the entire office and frame, then you will be really happy with the BRIO and what it has to offer. But for most people out there who are just recording YouTube videos or doing live streams for games, I think the C922 at what I paid for, I believe about $60 brand new, is a great option and it won't disappoint. My friend Vin did a dedicated video on that, so go ahead and check that out in the description section below if you would like to learn more about the C920. But as always, the links will be in the description section below, and I'd like to give a huge thanks to Logitech for sending us out for review. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them as well. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.